All right, if you're an exam aspirant, you know the economic survey is non-negotiable. So today, we're going to jump into one of its most critical chapters, employment and skill development. Let's break down exactly what you need to nail for your exams.
Okay, let's kick things off with just one number, 26%. So what's that about? That's the slice of India's population that's between 10 and 24 years old. Now, this isn't just some random statistic. It's the very foundation of India's single biggest economic opportunity, and maybe its greatest challenge for the decades ahead.
And that massive opportunity has a name you absolutely have to know, the demographic dividend. So what does that actually mean? Well, in simple terms, it's the economic superboost a country can get when it has more people working than people who are dependent. But, and this is a huge but, this dividend isn't just handed to you, it has to be earned. So the big question is, how do we do it?
So here's our game plan for today. We'll start with the foundation, understanding this huge demographic opportunity. Then, we'll build on that with the first pillar, the real state of employment today. Next, pillar 2, the action plan for creating jobs. And at the very top, the apex, skilling our workforce for the future. And of course, we'll wrap it all up with a power-packed recap of the key takeaways for your exams.
Okay, let's start at the bottom of that pyramid, the foundation. So why all the buzz about this right now? Because India is standing at a really unique point in its history. It's one of the youngest major economies in a world that is, frankly, getting older by the day.
Now, take a look at this chart. It really tells you everything you need to know in one picture. India's median age is just 28. 28! Now look at some of the other major economies. As their workforces are aging and shrinking, India has this massive wave of young, energetic people ready to jump in. This is what we mean by the youth advantage.
And this youth advantage leads to a really powerful economic effect. The dependency ratio, that's basically the number of non-working folks for every person who is working, is falling. Think of it like this. Fewer people to support means more money left over for savings, for investment, and for growth. But here is the all-important catch. This whole economic engine only works if that massive workforce has good, productive jobs.
And that's the perfect segue into our next big pillar. What's the real story with employment in India right now? Let's get past the headlines and dive right into the official data from the Periodic Labor Force Survey, the PLFS, to see what's actually going on.
Okay, before we jump into the numbers, we got to get one definition straight. The unemployment rate, or UR. Now, this isn't just anybody without a job. It's the percentage of people in the labor force. That means people who are either working or are actively looking for work who don't have a job. It's a very specific group. Getting that distinction right is crucial, especially for your exams.
So, what's the big headline from the latest survey? Well, it's this dramatic drop you see right here. The annual unemployment rate has been sliced almost in half, tumbling from 6% down to just 3.2%. This is a huge sign of post-pandemic recovery and a number you definitely want to remember.
But okay, a drop in unemployment is great. But what kind of work are people actually doing? The data shows a really interesting shift. The share of self-employed people has jumped up to over 58%, while casual labor has dropped. This points to a rise in entrepreneurship. And here's a little trick to remember the order of employment types by size for your exam. Just think SRC. Self-employed, then regular salaried, and finally casual labor. SRC. Got it?
All right, now I want you to focus on this next number, because honestly, it might be the single most important statistic in the entire survey. 41.7%. This is the female labor force participation rate, or FLFPR. Now, why is this such a big deal? To put that in perspective, just 6 years ago, in 2017-18, it was only 23.3%. That is a massive, game-changing leap for the Indian economy.
So you're probably asking, what's driving this incredible story? The survey points to a few key things. First, this growth is overwhelmingly coming from rural women. The surveys themselves are also getting better at measuring their work. Crucially, government programs like the Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana, National Rural Livelihoods Mission, or DANRLM, have been a game-changer, providing skills and credit. Combine that with a push for entrepreneurship and a post-pandemic shift to more flexible work, and you have the perfect recipe for this boom.
But, and there's always a but with data, right? We have to dig a little deeper. We need to ask where these women are working. And this chart shows that a huge majority, nearly 2/3, are in agriculture. So while their rising participation is a massive win, the next big challenge is helping them move into higher value sectors like manufacturing and services.
Okay, so we've looked at the data, the state of play. Now let's move up to our second pillar, the action plan. What's actually being done to create more and better jobs? Jobs beyond just agriculture.
A huge part of this strategy is the new set of labor codes. You can think of it as a balancing act. On one side of the scale, you've got more security for workers, things like guaranteed minimum wages and Social Security. But on the other side, you're giving businesses more flexibility, making it easier for them to hire people and grow. It's all about finding that sweet spot to encourage more formal job creation.
Now let's talk about a whole new frontier, the gig economy. Get this, the government projects that by the end of this decade, the number of gig workers in India will reach a mind-boggling 23.5 crore. Just think about that. App-based delivery, freelance platforms, remote projects. This digital shift is creating millions of flexible new jobs and totally reshaping what it means to go to work.
And all of this, the young population, the new types of jobs, it all leads us to the very top of our pyramid, the apex. And honestly, this is the most critical piece of the whole puzzle, skilling. How do we prepare India's workforce for a future that's changing faster than ever?
This quote right here from the survey's own analysis just hits the nail on the head. The problem isn't just about unemployment, it's about underemployment. We've got more than half of our graduates in jobs that don't even require a degree. That's a huge waste of potential, and it points to a massive disconnect between what's taught in college and what the job market actually needs.
So, how do you fix a problem that big? The survey suggests a really smart, tiered approach. You can think of it like a skills pyramid. At the base, everyone gets foundational skills, like basic AI literacy. In the middle, you have targeted training for specific jobs and industries. And at the very top, you develop deep expertise for the innovators and leaders. It's a practical way to prepare the entire workforce for the future.
Now, a flagship program to actually build this pyramid is the PM Internship Scheme. The goal is super ambitious, 1 crore internships in 5 years. The idea is simple but really powerful. It's about bridging that infamous gap between the classroom and the real world by giving young people actual hands-on experience in top companies. It's about democratizing learning by doing.
Phew. Okay, that was a lot of ground to cover. So, let's boil it all down to the absolute essentials, the stuff you have to remember for your exams. This is your high-yield summary, so get ready. First up, the hard data. For any objective paper, these are your golden nuggets. Unemployment, down to 3.2%. Female LFPR, a historic 41.7%. Remember that number. The big employment shift? Self-employment is now at 58.4%. Formal job creation, which we track with the Employees Provident Fund Organization, or EPFO, has more than doubled. And don't forget those future numbers for the gig and green economies. These are your must-know stats.
Okay, now for the big ideas, the concepts you'll need for your descriptive answers. The whole story revolves around one core concept, harnessing the demographic dividend. The number one trend to watch? Formalization of the economy. The major policy action you need to know? The 4 labor codes. And the key strategy for the future? It's all about skilling, with things like the PM Internship Scheme and that tiered skill framework. And that brings us to our final thought, the big question that looms over all of this. With a tidal wave of young people entering the job market, and with technology like AI changing the rules of the game, how does India make sure this amazing opportunity, this demographic dividend, doesn't turn into a demographic disaster? The policies and trends we've talked about today are India's answer to this question. But that window of opportunity, it won't stay open forever. The race is on. Thanks for watching.